Good morning to you, Dr. Winford James. How are you, sir?
Good morning, and thanks for the elevation. Good morning.
You need to. I think I'm on speakerphone. So is it possible that you could just pick me up on the on the mouth receiver? That would help me because I'm getting a little feedback coming back at me.
Only if I lower the volume, if that can work.
What is acting up? I'm sorry, doctor.
Okay, now it's all right. I'll take off the speakerphone.
There you go. Yes, that would normally solve the problem. I don't know if you were privy to the conversation I just had with Keston Nanku of the Employers Consultative Association. We're talking about the JTUM strike or withholding of labor call for next week Friday. And I ask you in this morning because Mr. Nanku contend that this is selfish, not looking at the bigger picture. I inquired of him whether in fact we were being fair to workers, and maybe we should be listening a little closer to what JTUM has to say, which is the Joint Trade Union Movement. Right. How do you weigh in on this situation? A call for folks to withhold labor next Friday.
Well, first of all, I didn't hear Mr. Nanku, so I can hardly comment on what he said.
Good enough.
But I have been informed the JTUM is calling a sick out for next week. And the first thing we must ask ourselves is whether the call is legal, whether a sick out itself would be legal. My understanding is that it would be legal. And the second thing is, would it be reasonable? Well, what are the tools that labor has to bring attention to the plight of its workers and to acquire reliefs for its workers? What are the tools? As I understand it, one of the tools is precisely the sick out that JTUM has called for, right? Mm-hmm. Now, of course, you can also have a strike, but
the word strike was not used. I think it was used a day away from work.
But you also have a legitimate notion called strike.
Yes,
it is only invocable in very limited circumstances, right? Mm-hmm. But they are not calling this a strike. They're calling it a sick out. And of course, while it may be interpreted as a circumvention of the regulations, in other words, a wolf in sheep's clothing, so to speak, the point is labor organizations around the world have access to that kind of, shall we say, well, let's say option, right? Mm-hmm. You could say sleight of hand, if you wish. A sleight of hand in order to bring attention to first of all, affect businesses, and of course, in this case, government, right? Mm-hmm. And to make government aware that labor does have the ability to hurt the provision of government services and therefore services to the public. Mm-hmm. So that probably what we can do, and I don't think we have the time this morning, is to explore the problems that labor thinks it has where the state is concerned, mm-hmm. and then relate the action that they have taken to the difficulties that they perceive themselves, that is to say their workers, their members, to be suffering. Labor has, of course, been caught up in a struggle with the government. Labor has pronounced itself disappointed with government's treatment of their workers, right? Mm-hmm. So that is not something new at all. But unreasonableness will have to be related to legality, legitimacy, reasonableness. And we don't have the time to explore the arguments in support of those planks.
Mr. Roger said this is to send a message to the government over its anti-worker policies.
Yes, I can't go so far as and so to talk about anti-government. I don't think government can afford to have an anti-worker approach.
Mm-hmm, gotcha.
Simply because most of the people who vote for government are in the public service, because we have a massive public service, as you know.
Being the major employer, quite frankly.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So government cannot afford, although it might be interpreted that way, government cannot afford to have an anti-worker perspective, and government, of course, would have its reasons. But that's the perception of labor, and also not only the perception, that is in keeping with the traditional reflex of the labor movement when it cannot get its way. Now, I'm not saying Labour should not have its way. I mean, Labour has rights just as anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And there are ways of negotiating the fulfillment of those rights. But I cannot say that Labour is doing anything illegal. I cannot say that they're doing anything illegitimate, and I cannot say that they're doing anything unreasonable. They must have been driven to a point where they think that this is the way to go.
You see, Dr. James, here is one of the problems I have with this. I always have a problem, and I'm not saying this is unique to this situation, but I always have a problem when I hear about a memorandum of understanding between an incoming government and any body, in this case the labor movement. You cannot make an arrangement before you get into power, because regardless of what you suspect and how you opine on what exists, until you get there is the only time you really know what's there. So you get yourself in a situation where you sign a memorandum of understanding. It means that you are going to pay a price at some point, unless you discover El Dorado.
Well, I imagine the government fully expects to pay the price. Because they did get into the memorandum of understanding. And let me say this is really politics that we are seeing, a politics in action. Opposition party, right, unpopular government, opposition party hoping to win the votes of Labour, and doing something that could entangle it in great difficulty if it were to win. And because of the tumble of prices that we have experienced on the world market, the tumble of energy prices, hydrocarbons and so on, oil and gas, it meant that the two of them did not have the latitude in which to give a big embrace the labor movement, because its hands were tied.
Yes, but there's a point you made earlier also when we are talking about the dangers of MOUs. You compound the situation when, after having such a memorandum of understanding, that you get into a situation where you are dismissing people without consultation.
Yes.
So you're exacerbating the situation, multiplied by 10.
Yes, maybe more than 10. And an MOU is not something that is legally binding, so far as I understand. It's not legally binding, but it is there as in the public record as reflecting an earlier intent. But earlier intents can be varied by the actual conditions that you face
exactly
when you get into government. You cannot necessarily, and I don't know if there are clauses in the MOU that anticipated a downward trend in oil prices and therefore hedged against going through with other clauses in the MOU if certain conditions were to be encountered. No, but I may have read that MOU, but I can't remember. But I'm saying yes. But then this is where politics comes into place. How can we as JTUM force government to accede to some of our legitimate requests? Because all Labour's requests are in its own eyes legitimate. Right? So they are arguing from that perspective. And they're saying, now look, we have talked to you, we have implored you, and you are ignoring us, or you are not accommodating us. How do we get you to listen? Well, we're going to try the sick-out thing. Now, we don't know what success the call will meet with. We'll have to wait and see the response.
I think the best way to summarize that is to use the Calypso. Your revenue may fall down, but we're asking still.
Yeah, we're asking still.
It is 10:30 on time. My guess is Dr. Winford James. Dr. James, in the small window we have, because when we go into the longer conversation is when I like to have you here in studio. But something happened on Friday that I want to get your opinion on. The head of the judiciary, who is the head of the award committee, the Chief Justice of Trinidad and Tobago, announced, and it was acceded to by the president, to move the national awards from Independence Day instead now to Republic Day. I think it's a good move. What do you think?
Well, I don't know how you can think it's a good move, because you have no basis for so saying, at least no published basis. The Chief Justice, head of the National Awards Committee, merely said that it would be more meaningful to make that shift, because the way we treated Republic Day was really, we did not invest it with any meaningfulness. And therefore, by attaching something like the awards ceremony, we would be giving it some meaning.
The reason that I agreed to it when you said you couldn't see why I did, I'll tell you why I did. Because I thought if you move from the independence to the status of a Republican status, then what you have done is you have advanced the nation. And I thought this would be a good way to always have it inextricably interwoven the fact that you have Republic Day and you have great contributors to the country.
Yeah, but we already have that. It's just that we have it on another day. And let me say this, a very important day as well, Independence Day. Nobody can deny the importance of Independence Day.
No.
We are talking political independence from Britain, are we not?
Yes.
So that still retains its importance. And if you have attached the national awards to that day, we're not getting into the nitty-gritty of how the people are chosen and so on, because that is going to be an angry sort of situation. We get there. But what I'm saying here is that if you're shifting something that invests Independence Day with importance to another day, that apparently lacks it. You could not come up with something else, so you're saying, let's snatch this from one day and put it there.
Wait a minute, sir. Wait a minute. I did a party last night and we had something called a fog machine. Are you saying this is a smoke screen?
Well, clearly, I mean, I don't know how that could be important, really, because you're just moving something from one place to the next.
So you think the Chief Justice is trying just to change the conversation? Is that what
well,
you're saying?
I can't say. In this country, we deal with a lot of superficialities. For example, the Pearl Spain City Council decided to honor Penny Commission, and I have no problem in honoring Penny Commission, right?
Yes, sir.
And now the Emancipation Support Committee is saying, we are also going to honor her. No, but on what basis? We keep honoring people for the same kinds of things when our mind feels like it.
Well, I see the justification for the city doing it. I mean, she was the first black person.
Yeah, but I'm not dealing with the city council as such. I'm just using them as a background.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying now the ESC is jumping on that bandwagon, right? And why? What has Penny contributed? Well, we know she was the first woman of color to win the Miss Universe pageant. Now, we named the plane after her, right? We did other things. We gave her the Trinity Cross, for crying out loud. I think she got the Trinity Cross on the basis of her being beautiful. And we keep doing that almost as if we have no other kind of substance that we can honor.
I accept that without question, but I also say as an ambassador throughout the world, she did also carry the word for us.
Yes,
but I understand your bigger point.
As a result of her being high profile and winning the award of
Miss Universe,
that she got those things.
Okay, I got you.
And listen, I am not against Penny. She's a beautiful lady, and she continues to be. What I'm saying is a nation keeping the honoring going, even though there's nothing that has changed.
Isn't that an indictment on a lot of the people of current vintage then?
Well, I think so, because we are dabbling in superficialities.
Oh, we are dabbling in the lack of
that's what we are doing. And we're going to, if she continues to live, and we hope so, they're going to honor her again. But it's for beauty, Rennie B. And I'm saying, how often are you going to honor the same accomplishment? How often are you going to do that? So I don't know why they are getting involved in that. So I'm just saying that. But to go back to the more substantive matter, that is to say, the award ceremony, can we not think of some other way of investing Republic Day with importance?
I can always depend on you to give me a different perspective. And that's exactly what you did. I did not see the smoke screen. I mean, we're getting close to the original to the original people, the first people, and I guess there must have been a couple of smoke screens put on there. But we shan't go there. Dr. James, thank you so much for the perspective. I always appreciate it. It's always good to hear from you, and your perspective is truly appreciated. This may be a smoke screen. I did not look at it like that, and now I've got something else to consider.
You're welcome.